Abigail Adams was the wife of President John Adams and the mother of John Quincy Adams. She was the U.S. First Lady and lived from 1744 to 1818. Abigail Adams was very influential. She was an advocate for women's rights and often was an influence over her husband's political decisions. Abigail Smith was born on November 11, 1744, in Weymouth, Massachusetts. The daughter of a minister, she was a devoted reader, studying the works of William Shakespeare and John Milton, among others. Adams did not, however, attend school, which was common for girls at the time. Abigail Smith and John Adams were third cousins and had known each other since they were children. The two happened to meet at a social gathering in 1762, where John saw the petite, shy 17-year-old through different eyes and was immediately smitten. 3 years later, the couple married and soon welcomed their first child, a daughter named Abigail, in 1765. Their family continued to grow with the addition of John Quincy in 1767, Susanna in 1768, and Charles in 1770, and Thomas Boylston in 1772. Sadly, Susanna died as a toddler, and the family later suffered another tragedy when Abigail delivered a stillborn daughter in 1777. With a busy law practice, John Adams spent a lot of time away from home. The situation only worsened when he became an active member of the American Revolution and the Revolutionary War. Abigail was often left to carry much of the burden at home, raising their children and caring for the family farm. The couple remained close through a continuous and intimate correspondence with each other. It is believed that they exchanged more than 1,100 letters.
John and Abigail exchanged over 1,100 letters from 1762 until 1801. The correspondence began during their courtship in 1762 and provides a vivid account of their lives throughout the critical moments of America's fight for independence. The letters show the hardship of their daily lives and Abigail's strength in taking the role of head of the family during her husband's long absences. Her determination in raising a family, dealing with childbirth, the loss of a child, smallpox, and wartime shortages. They also show her support to her husband's career and her own political view. They exchanged numerous letters during this time away from home during the Continental Congress and diplomatic assignments in Europe. Writing letters during the war was challenging and some were intercepted. They wrote letters when they were in Europe in a couple of occasions in 1786 and 1789, when they were apart. During Adams' vice presidency and presidency, they exchanged many letters when Adams was away or Abigail was in their house in Quincy. Most of the couple's lives and insights are known from their collection of letters, which is part of the Adams Family Papers of the Massachusetts Historical Society. Their website features 1,160 letters.
Abigail Adams remained a supportive spouse and confidant after her husband became the president in 1797. Some critics objected to Abigail's influence over her husband, calling her Mrs. President. The nation's second First Lady had kept a busy schedule when she was in Philadelphia, the country's capital at the time. Adams rose to tend to her family and household matters and spent much of the remainder of the day receiving visitors and hosting events. She still spent a lot of time back in Massachusetts because of her health. Abigail and John Adams did not always see eye to eye on matters of policy. During her husband's presidency, the United States had some problems with France. Once a great ally, France was in the midst of revolution when Adams became president. The country was being run by a 5-man executive group known as the Directory, alongside with a legislative body. The Directory had stopped trade with the United States and refused to meet with any U.S. envoys. In 1798, President Adams was told that the French officials would hold talks for the substantial bribes. This attempt at extortion did not sit well with him, and he told Congress about the incident. The documents related to the incident were published, and the whole situation became known as the XYZ affair, as Adams had only used letters to identify the French officials instead of their names. Abigail thought war should be declared while John sought out a peaceful, less costly solution. The couple did, however, agree on the Alien and Sedition Acts of 1798. The three Alien Acts were aimed at immigrants increasing the waiting period for naturalization, allowing the government to detain foreign subjects, and permitting the deportation of any alien deemed dangerous. The Sedition Act federalized the ban against malicious anti-government writings and other works inciting opposition to Congress or the President. Under the act, penalties included fines and jail time. An ardent champion of her husband, Abigail thought those who published lies about John should be punished. John Adams signed these acts into law and has since been rebuked by historians for this anti-immigrant, anti-free speech legislation. Abigail Adams was one of the first advocates of women's equal education and women's property rights. Adams had strong feelings about marriage and believed women should take more part in decisions rather than simply serve their husbands. Adams believed that women should educate themselves and use their intellect to manage the household affairs, as well as be a moral guide for the family. In a letter to her husband John, March 1776, while he was in Philadelphia, Adams wrote, "Remember the ladies, and be more generous and favorable to them than your ancestors. Do not put such unlimited power into the hands of the husbands. Remember, all men would be tyrants if they could. If particular care and attention is not paid to the ladies, we are determined to foment a rebellion, and will not hold ourselves bound by any laws in which we have no voice or representation." Around the time her husband was defeated by Thomas Jefferson in the 1800 election, the Adams learned of the death of the second son Charles, which was related to alcoholism. With great sadness, the Adams moved to the country's new capital, Washington, D.C., where they became the first residents of the White House. Abigail Adams wrote many letters to family around the time, shedding light on the early days of the new capital and complaining about the unfinished state of their new home. A few months later, they returned to their family farm. With John now retired, the couple was able to spend more time together. Abigail continued to run the farm and to take care of family members, including their eldest child, Nabby, who eventually died of cancer in their home in 1814. Struggling with her own health for decades, Abigail Adams had a stroke on October 18, 1818, and died at home with her family on October 28, 1818. Abigail Adams left a great legacy and died a very influential and powerful woman.